Retro.
Are you an aspiring Jedi, or do you dabble with the dark side of the Force?
Regardless of whether you fancy yourself a defender of the light or an aspiring Sith Lord, you're going to need a lightsaber.
Podcast Stardust is pleased to partner with Saber Masters, the creators of high-quality, durable, and affordable lightsabers.
Saber Masters is preparing to launch the Ultimate Lightsaber 2.0, and right now you can get 2 for the price of 1.
So, check out the link in our show notes and go get your Ultimate Lightsabers from Saber Masters.
And don't forget to use our referral code Stardust to save $10 at checkout.
And each purchase using our referral code helps support Podcast Stardust.
This is John Jackson Miller, author of Star Wars Kenobi, Star Wars A New Dawn, Star Wars Lost Tribe of the Sith, Star Wars Knight Errant, and the upcoming Star Wars The Living Force. And you're listening to Podcast Stardust with Dennis and Jay. May the Force be with you.
Hello, Star Wars fans, and welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
It's Monday. Nothing we can do about that. But let's kick off the week with a look at some Star Wars news. Before we do that, though, Jay, you want to remind everybody where we can be found around the internet?
Sure can. And it's always a great thing to start your week with us, right? We are on Facebook, Instagram, and X at Podcast Stardust.
Okay, the dish is aligned, the signal is boosted to maximum output, the shield is down, and we are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So we have a variety of quality in our news this week, but let's just dive into it. We've all been eagerly awaiting some sort of announcement about a script and, some sort of announcement about a script and the production of Daisy Ridley's new Jedi Order movie. And she is currently out promoting her thriller movie Magpie, and so she had an interview with Collider. And of course, when anyone's been in Star Wars, they get asked about Star Wars no matter what they're promoting. And so they were asking her about the upcoming movie, and some of the key comments that she made were that no, she doesn't have the script yet, but she expects to be reading it imminently, and she really thinks that it could be filming by the end of this year, and if not, then by the beginning of next year. And when asked about the title, she was uncertain, but she does believe it will be called The New Jedi Order. So, with all that being said, you got any opinions on those statements, Jay?
Well, it's very encouraging, just to hear that being said by Daisy and the fact that she's able to be public with that kind of information, because as we know, there's been so many pieces of information that Star Wars stars have been coy about because they had to be because of NDAs and the like. So yeah, very encouraging. The whole New Jedi Order thing, I know we've been kind of throwing around that idea as, sort of the name for these and at least one of the movies. And it's just yet another one of those things that's borrowed from Legends, from, Expanded Universe, which I have a love-hate relationship with that kind of stuff. It's great to see and hear those nods, but then again, it's kind of like, can't we just let that be what that was at that time and just come up with something new? So I don't know, maybe I'm just being crotchety about the whole thing, but in general, yay, I'm very, very happy. But how do you feel?
Well, to just what you said, I'm not sure that it necessarily is a good idea to call this movie New Jedi Order, because then we'll have a marketing event around it, the New Jedi Order. And I think that is a potential for confusion, since we did have an entire 20-book series called The New Jedi Order and the Legends, as you're pointing out. But it is a good way to describe what this movie is in while it's in production. So I would hope they'd come up with something a little bit more akin to the titles we got in the original saga. Things like A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, A New Jedi Dawn, or something like that. You could call it something like that, which I think would be a bit more with the George Lucas flair for naming things that that harkens back to those old serials. So that would be my hope for it. I mean, if they go with New Jedi Order, then I could live with it. But it is such a distinct thing in Star
Mhm.
Wars history. How many years did it take for them to get those books out? Three,
Right.
4, 5, something
Right.
like
A
that.
lot.
So yeah. So I mean, I don't know that you necessarily want to create that confusion, but
Right. And I'm
we'll
very
see.
protective because, that's where my girl Tahiri's from, so
That's right. Right. Indeed. Indeed. Well, speaking of Star Wars movies in production, this was late breaking. We're pull back the curtain. We are recording our news even earlier than we usually do, just because this week has been crazy and it's
Mhm.
going to remain crazy. So we're fitting this in when we can. And as we sat down to record, this story came up, which was Patty Jenkins says that she's back on Rogue Squadron. And as the story goes, she was doing an interview with Ben Mankiewicz, and she was just kind of asked about her schedule. And she, I'm paraphrasing, said that she left active production on Rogue Squadron to go work on Wonder Woman 3. But the agreement with Lucasfilm was that when she was finished with that movie, she would come back to work on Rogue Squadron. Well, with the DC cinematic universe having been like completely turned on its head, Wonder Woman 3 is no longer happening. And so she said she's now back to doing Rogue Squadron and she owes Lucasfilm a script. What are your thoughts?
Talk about Star Wars whiplash. I mean, we hear one thing and then we hear something else and then, I guess such as Hollywood, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But I am kind of surprised. I'm not I'll be the first to admit, I am not really up on what's going on with the whole DC universe, but be that as it may, I'm very happy. We were so bummed, I know, when Rogue Squadron was kind of taken off the docket of the list of things that were gonna happen, and just hearing this just fills my heart with joy because that means that obviously this could potentially and I hate to say, "Oh, it's gonna happen," because we know
Right.
they giveth and they taketh away. But this is again very encouraging and I'm so here for it. But what do you think?
I'm very cautiously optimistic
Right.
about it, I suppose. I mean, it's so hard these days to take seriously any announcement of any Star Wars movie. I mean, we know that The Mandalorian and Grogu goes into production in June,
Mhm.
and that we're expecting that movie likely in May of 2026, if not December of 2026. They have two Star Wars slots on the Disney movie release schedule and for 2026, and so I'm assuming it's gonna be one of those. If assuming they meet both, then the May one makes the most sense because it's the only movie that's going to be in production here in the next couple of months. I don't know where this fits in, and that's something Patty Jenkins addressed in that interview. She's like, they got several movies in production, so she doesn't really know where this falls in line. And okay, but if it's not the first movie and it's not the second movie, I know they can work on multiple Star Wars movies at a time, but
Mhm.
do they want to?
Mhm.
And if they don't put it into active production, does she get distracted by something else? Don't forget she was going to go do that Cleopatra movie,
Oh, yeah.
and that
Forgot
ended
about
up
that.
being taken off her first slate, so she could
Mhm.
focus on Wonder Woman 3. And then Wonder Woman 3 went away, and now she's back to doing this allegedly. And so, would something else be offered to her?
Mhm.
I don't really know what she's done
Yeah.
recently, to be honest with
Yeah.
you, and so I don't, it seems like a long time to be dormant. So anyway, I hope it happens. I like the idea of having a post the Rise of Skywalker or X-wing series of some sort, or series or movie or whatever the case may be. But I don't know. It's just that I'm not ready to be burned on this yet again.
Mhm. Well, you said series, and I was sitting here thinking that, I mean, this could potentially be something on Disney Plus if they decide that they don't wanna go into the theater mode with it, you know what I mean? And I would be totally on board with that too, even if it
I
was
would
just a
love that.
limited run series.
Yeah, no, I would love that. I think the thing that's working against that is that right now, a lot of comments from Bob Iger are that the meat and potatoes, that what makes the engine of Disney Plus work right now is the big budget movies that were released in theaters and eventually make their way to Disney Plus. And
Mm.
so I don't know that something like this is going to turn out that way. I could see more animated Star Wars fare, and I could see more things that tie into the Mandoverse on Disney Plus.
Mhm.
But we'll see. I don't know. It's the we got the Acolyte coming, so that breaks the mold, and of course we've had Andor, and that breaks that mold that I'm talking about. But Lando was going to be a Disney Plus series, and then
Right.
Donald Glover's brother was talking about how no, it's actually a movie.
Mhm.
Okay, great. I'd love to see that, regardless of what it is. But when? I mean, there's 4 official movies that have been announced now, but then now we're throwing Rogue Squadron back in there, and then I can't even think of all the people that have said they're working on Star Wars. So, okay,
Yeah.
we'll see
Yeah.
what happens.
It's like the
It's it,
flavor of the week.
yeah. I would like more concrete plans, but I'm not going to get what I want. That's just the way it is.
That's because we're planners, we like to be able to plan for things. We like to be able to have something to look forward to that we know we can count on.
You're absolutely right. There's no
Mhm.
doubt about that, and you like having a movie on the schedule and then being able to follow all the little tidbits. Who's getting cast for it?
Mhm.
We just did that episode about The Force Awakens, that era after Disney was
Yes.
purchased by Lucasfilm, and then all the announcements that came out about that, and the table read, and the trailer and stuff like that. I want that again.
Yes.
It's
Amen.
been, nearly 5 years since we had anything like that.
Yeah. It's
And
crazy how fast time goes by. I
Mhm.
just had to throw that out there, sorry.
No worries. And so I want to get back to that again. I want a new era of Star Wars movies. I want more new heroes. I want I want all that stuff coming again. And so,
Mhm.
great. We got the Mandalorian and Grogu, and I'm excited for that. But there isn't as much mystery attached to that as there was something like The Force Awakens.
Mhm. Well, not only that, but I feel like, it's great to have a lot of things to look forward to, and it's great to be able to get these little teases like, "Ooh, this could be happening," and, "Ooh, that could be happening." But, there's just something magical about being able to, like you said, just follow the production through on something
Mhm.
and just being able to have one thing at a time even to look forward to, even if it's a couple things at a time. But like, I just feel like a lot of this is getting so watered down with all of these rumors and all of these, we're going to do this, but oh, wait, no, we're not going to do this. And oh, we might do this. And then, oh, wait, I guess we're not going to do this. And
Mhm.
maybe that's just part and parcel of the day and age that that we're living in, that we're so able to get information like this so easily, whereas back in, the days of Return of the Jedi and even Revenge of the Sith, that kind of information wasn't something that the quote unquote normal fandom population was privy to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. It's just we got this. That's cool. I'm excited if it's actually going to happen, but it feels like it's so far off that can I
Oh
count on that? But what's next? Ryan Johnson's trilogy is going to get resurrected for the upteenth time.
yeah.
So yeah, okay. Well,
Oh,
we'll
you
see
never
what
know.
happens with that. Just something to throw back on the fire and keep an eye on. So
Yeah, I keep thinking somehow Ryan Johnson returned.
indeed, indeed. Okay, so let's get into some books and comics news. Up first, we have another Star Wars Vision comic tie-in. This one they're calling Star Wars Visions Takashi Okazaki #1, and he is the creator of this comic. It'll be already arriving on March 20th, 2024. I'm assuming this was announced at some point. I'm just missing it. I do remember that was the other uh, Star Wars Visions comic that came in, and I can't remember the name of the creator of that one off the top of my head. Oh, Peach Momoko did that one. But
Mm,
this one features the Ronin from the Kamikaze Douge short, The Duel. But it is a prequel to that story, as best I can, about how the Ronin meets up with his droid. And there is an excerpt from it on StarWars.com where the Ronin is battling some sort of mysterious warrior. Did you get a chance to look at that?
I did. And, it definitely falls within the same aesthetic that we're used to with, the Ronin with the black and the white and just the red of the lightsabers and that type of thing. More pencil drawings and whatnot. But, the artwork and the drawings themselves are very, very intriguing, and getting back to that original aesthetic of the Ronin in that
Mhm.
very first visions that we were treated to. So yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, I really liked it. I think it, as you were pointing out, that aesthetic is really cool. That it's black and white, except for the lightsabers, which
Hmm.
are red, and that's the color that's on the page. That's the only color that's on the page.
Right.
And it was cool seeing this very much Japanese ninja like inspired fighting going on. They're like falling down the side of a cliff while they're swinging at each other, which was pretty neat to see. And I remember when we read the Ronin novel by Emma Mako Candon,
Yeah. Cool.
which which was pretty good, except for it was, as she described it, like very Japanese and quite frankly, kind of hard to get the gist of what was going on sometimes, which just made me think Visions, it's all in that name. These are stories that are meant to be seen, not
Right.
necessarily read. And so I really liked the way this looked, and I was really intrigued by that. So I don't know if I necessarily pick the Sun up at the comic store or get a digital version or just wait for it to come on Marvel Unlimited. But this is something I'm looking forward to reading at some point.
Oh yeah, yeah, and even just from these little excerpts, you can really get lost in the detail of the artwork that's on each and every panel.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, it's like I said, quite fantastic. I love that Ronin character.
Mhm.
He's so so cool, so mysterious, and I like to see what else they could do with him.
Yes.
Okay, last story we have for the week, and this is in the realm of books. We are had the announcement of Star Wars: Someone Who Loves You, and this is a retelling of The Princess and the Scoundrel by Beth Revis. It is a picture book format of this, coming on December 3rd, 2024, with illustrations by Sophie Lee. You and I were trying not to talk about this before we recorded because we didn't want to do the podcast before the podcast, but we have thoughts, and we decided to share them here. What do you think, Jay?
Well, when I first started seeing this coming across, like my Instagram feed and that type of thing, the first thing that I thought of was, oh, is this like a little golden book kind of thing? And
Mhm.
so I hadn't really looked too far into it until, we were kind of looking through some things right before we recorded. So, but yeah, that was my first inclination, especially from the cover, because it looks very much like one of those little golden books.
Yeah, I'm with you. And we looked it up on Amazon, and we
Hmm.
saw again it was going to be 48 pages, and it is like a reading level of 5 to 8, so not too far off for the reading level of a little
Yeah.
golden book. It's more of a middle grade type of thing, I suppose, or young reader, I guess is what they might call it. I don't know. I had mixed feelings about that because when I heard there's this illustrated edition, which is a retelling, if I hadn't heard the retelling word, I would have thought, oh, a comic adaptation, kind of what they've done with like a couple of Thrawn books. The Thrawn Alliances has currently got a comic adaptation that's out there that I've been meaning to pick up and just haven't gotten around to, but I'd be eager to do that. Okay, that aside, I thought, oh, this could be kind of cool to see the wedding in comic form. But then going and looking at it and saying, oh, it's a 48-page book and it is aimed at 5 to 8 year olds is kind of disappointing. I was hoping for something a little bit more mature, I guess.
Mhm. Well, the way that I took it, especially after reading the Amazon description, that says Han and Leia are about to get married, but before they can walk down the aisle, some curious Ewoks want to know what love is. Together, Han and Leia find the words to define what love means to them. Love can be a lot of things, but in the end, it's a reminder we're never alone. So it's a picture book, and it's supposed to be giftable and illustrated. And what it actually reminds me of is I used to read this book to my boys when they were little, that was about, mama loves you. And then it was all of the different types of animals that were mothers, and they went
Mhm.
through, the little dens and the little clutches and that type of thing. So I'm almost wondering if that's what this is all about. It's kind of in like saying this is what love is. And so it's kind of more, exploring that idea for youngsters. But with like you said, it's a little bit more of like a middle grade in a way, but 6 to 8 years is about the right time, to like start exploring emotions and, what that means to different people. So
Yeah. 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 Well, it was interesting because it's when you go to StarWars.com, it's not immediately apparent what they're talking about.
no,
You
it's
kind of
not.
have to dive into the details on Amazon.com, and the reason why you and I are talking about it is that this is a book we liked when we
Oh
covered
yeah.
it, and mainly for the scenes that were happening around the wedding, which was a portion of it. And then they kind of tacked on the adventure on the Halcyon. afterwards, which wasn't necessarily a bad adventure, but the whole villain in there and the resolution of things was just not the most dynamic, exciting thing that I've read in Star Wars. But just how much thought Beth Revis put into what Leia was thinking and the traditions and what the Ewoks were thinking when it was time, when a marriage was being held inside their village and there was a bachelor party and stuff like that. It was really what Luke was thinking along the way as
Mhm.
well. And, him being happy for Han and Leia, and, Han's emotions and thoughts when, he encountered Leia for like the first time after the battle, the day after the first battle. And, she's trying to give some report and talk about some mission. And then he just, asks her to marry him and all that. Cool section of that book. And so getting some of that illustrated could have been particularly, fun, especially, I remember us talking about Leia's wedding dress, how big a deal they
Right.
made about that, and getting more scenes, and more images of that dress could have been cool. But I don't know, this went being from something that I was like, oh, that's intriguing, to I think it's going to be a pass for me.
Yeah, well, I went to Beth Revis's Instagram too, and she was, of course, promoting the whole thing and just talking about Sophie Lee and the artwork and that type of thing. And one of the things that she did say is that there may be some, or there will be some surprise characters in the wedding background. So
Huh,
I wonder who that's going to be.
Harrison Dula.
Hey,
Pure guess on my part, but
that'd be fantastic.
Beetle who came to mind. I don't know why. All right. Well, anyways, if you're interested, then you can look for this again on December 3rd, is when it'll be hitting bookstores.
There you go.
So that's all we've got for this week's news. Not a terribly busy week, but hey, it's hard to follow up last week's discussion. But
Right.
just want to say thanks for joining us for the news this week on Podcast Stardust. We hope you'd enjoyed it. And if you want to get our thoughts on upcoming news, make sure you hit the subscribe button on your podcatcher, and you'll get all those downloaded to you automatically. Mondays right now, but Fridays when we don't have a current Disney Plus series. And then you'll also get our reviews and other discussion episodes that come out each week as well. I'd also like to remind you that you can find all episodes of the show over on richsapp.com, all previous 703 of them. And you can also check out other great podcasts over there covering everything from the MCU, DC, retro culture, Dune, now that's back in theaters, Star Trek, and more. We appreciate your 5-star ratings and reviews on whatever podcatcher it is you use to catch your podcasts, especially if that's Apple Podcasts. And we absolutely love it when you share the show and your favorite episodes on social media with your friends. So speaking of all that, Jay, you want to remind everybody what our social media contacts are and what our other homes on the internet are?
Absolutely. So we are very easy to find because we are literally everywhere. Everywhere you turn, there we are. So we are on Facebook and Instagram and X at Podcast Stardust. We also have a Pinterest page with lots of boards, and we have 2 YouTube channels. So we have our regular YouTube feed and our YouTube Music as well. Lots of great conversation going on over on YouTube Music. And so we'd love it if you'd head over to both, like and subscribe. And you can also hit us up on Spotify and basically everywhere you can find podcasts, we're there. And we also have a Discord room. So if you are up for some real time chatter, you can head over to our show page, click on the community tab, and you are right there in our room. And there are tons of other rooms on the RetroZap Discord server as well. So as Dennis was just talking about, there are lots of pop culture things going on and lots of rooms to reflect all of those. And then we also have a TeePublic store, and we are teepublic.com/user/podcast stardust, or you can just look us up and just look for Podcast Stardust. And we have 7 different show logo designs available on all kinds of things. So you can get some t-shirts, sweatshirts, spring's around the corner. So maybe you need a wardrobe revamp. And we'd love to see some of that stuff out in the wild. So if you do happen to snag anything, make sure you snap a picture and tag us on one of those social media outlets. And then we are also working with Saber Masters right now. So you can get a 2-for-1 deal on the Ultimate Lightsaber 2.0 from Saber Masters. And Dennis and I just did a deep dive about our lightsabers not too long ago on our most recent World Between Worlds. So if you want to check out all the details about those lightsabers and how incredibly happy we are and how much fun we are having with them, you can check that out. And if you do head to sabermasters.com, make sure that you put in the code Stardust at your checkout, and you will receive an additional $10 off of your order. So again, that link will be in our show notes, but you can always just go to sabermasters.com. So with that, Dennis, I know you've got just a couple weeks left until the new season of Warp Trails is going to start up again. So fill us in on that and anything else you got going on.
So Warp Trails is the podcast devoted to Star Trek that is hosted by myself and my wife Beth. And as Jay was just hinting there, we've got season 5 of Discovery running around the beginning of April. And so when that happens, we'll be back on the mics recording Warp Trails, and you can find that on the rest of that podcast feed. If you want to hear our thoughts on previous episodes or seasons of Discovery, Picard, Lower Decks, and Strange New Worlds, and HeavyRushesApp.com. Look for the Warp Trails page, and you can find all the old episodes over there. Jay, why don't you fill everyone in on the world of cosplay?
All right. So over on my Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay, you can catch all of my adventures as well as me posting about a lot of other cosplayers as well. It's a great community over there. And so if you check out my stories, you'll find a lot of amazing other cosplayers, content creators, and small business owners and the like. And I love lifting others up. So I do have a huge month coming up in April. I've got Fan Expo Cleveland. I have the Pop Culture Convention for the Operation Fandom Pop Culture, and then also a event in Hartville, Ohio, the day before that. So I'm not going to run down through all the dates, but if you want to check out where I am, then head to j.snipscosplay.
Okay, upcoming on the show this Wednesday, we get back into our The Phantom Menace series. And on Friday, we'll be getting back to The Bad Batch with a discussion of episode 8 of season 3. So until then, thanks for listening to episode 704 Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great week. And until next time, may the Force be with you.